right, shalom.
Shalom.
Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shai. Today's topic, again, like we've been saying, is a continuation of historical proofs of the 10 lost tribes. And in the last lesson we did, we said that we were going to stop, the lessons on the 10 tribes that are scattered here in the so-called Americas, right? The Indian tribes that are here, and we were going to, deal with Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, because, they, we don't want to seem tribal, but the reason why we're doing these lessons is not to be tribal. It's just to bring out information on the so-called, Native American Indian and the so-called Latin tribes here in the so-called Americas. So, we're going to continue it on as long as the Lord allows, and eventually in the future, we'll bring out other stuff, because if you really look at the whole situation with the tribes, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi are already well taken care of. It's well established that Judah, Benjamin, and Levi are Israelites. It's well established, So, we don't have to bring any extra stuff out, even though if we find stuff that brings out more information on these tribes, we will. But the bottom line is that those tribes are already straight, and they already know, because there's a lot of people there's a lot of people out here that are woken up to that they're Israelites among Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. There's a lot of them. Just because you don't see the amount of people out there that know that they're Israelites doesn't mean that this word isn't going out. So the Spirit has been on us to really go into the so-called Native American Indian tribes, or the indigenous tribes, the so-called, like the Gadites, Reubenites, and the rest of the other tribes, because we're at that point now where the Northern Kingdom is going to start coming or flooding into this thing. Believe it or not, because it even surprises us that these tribes are going to come. But give me Amos 9 and 11. But the Most High, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, already said that these tribes are going to come flooding in at this time, because this is the time for the gathering of all 12 tribes, and they're going to be gathered out of what? The land of the north. And what land of the north is that? Here in America. So if somebody
Amos,
got that,
chapter 9, verse 11. In that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen.
Right. So now, what is the tabernacle of David? The word tabernacle means house. Why did it say the tabernacle of David that is fallen? Because during the time of King David, because prior to King David being on the scene, you had King Saul. Now, King Saul's kingdom was mainly consisted of who? The tribe of Benjamin. So now, when King David came on the scene, and the Most High gave the kingdom over to King David, he took it away from Saul, because Saul went against the word of the Most High, which is all spiritual. When King David was established, he had power over all 12 tribes, all the tribes. And then after King David, when King Solomon ruled, King Solomon started worshiping the idols of the other nations, and the Most High got mad and rent the kingdom from him, but he didn't take it away from him until the time of his son Jeroboam, which the Most High split the kingdom in half and gave 10 tribes to Jeroboam, and the rest of the other 3 tribes that were left, he gave it to Rehoboam. Now, when Jeroboam took over, because when you go back into history, all of Levi was scattered among all the 12 tribes. But what happened was that Rehoboam, once he found out that the Most High gave him power with the 10 tribes, he gave a decree and an order that all of the Levites were to leave from among the tribes and go back to Judah and Benjamin. That's why we didn't have amongst the so-called, or amongst the Northern Kingdom, we didn't have any priests. That's why the Most High said, if your brother got some.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something real quick on that point. So when some of the scholars say that, that when they go into about Levi being over here, like some of the scholars say they seen some of Levi amongst Reuben, really it wasn't Levi.
Right.
And I even went off on that point too. But what it was is that they had set up, which Gad was setting up, there was other people they were setting up to be lawgivers. In other words, they was dealing with the ceremonies as the Levites did it. But the Levites were back over there with Judah. So like what the brother's saying is true according to the scriptures. Levi didn't come over here with the other tribes. So the priests that they seen weren't actual Levites. They were men from the other tribes, primarily like Gad and other men from other tribes that were doing the things that the Levites would do, but they weren't Levites.
Right. You know, so because that was the decree, and the reason why the Lord put the spirit on Jeroboam to do that was because the other 10 tribes were going to be scattered over here to this side of the world, and there's a actual prophecy of Gad, which is the so-called North American Indians, that they were going to be the portion of a lawgiver was going to be given unto them. You got that, brother?
Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 20. And of Gad he said, blessed be he that enlarges Gad.
Now, what does it mean, blessed be he that enlarges Gad? Because when you look at the land of all the 10 tribes over here, the land of Gad is the biggest land.
Yeah.
You got most of North America was Gad, and up into Canada was Gad. You got Issachar, they had a certain portion of the land. You had Reuben, they had a certain portion of the land. You had Zebulun and the rest of the other tribes, Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh, and all of them. They all had a certain portion of land. But their land was not in the amass or greatness of Gad.
Right, Gad had the most land.
They had the most land. They had all of Canada, which Canada is big. Up in Alaska, that's all Gad. All throughout North America, that was Gad. That's why the Most High spoke about Japhet, which are the Polynesians today that were scattered around. There's people out in Australia, in different places around the world that are Japhet, which are dark-skinned people. That's who the Most High chose to be that particular peoples. And the Lord said that he would enlarge Japhet, you know, and I'm just paraphrasing, he would enlarge Japhet. Why? Because the land that they were given, which is all throughout Europe, was a big, vast land. That's why the Most High said that. Not because they were going to be the most of all people. For you dickheads out there, Bananarama, you assholes out there that say that, well, the biggest nation out there is Japhet, the Gooks. Because there are many out there. You dudes are bugged out, man. And you know what? You guys, all you do is come on the comment board. You'll put a scripture that you don't understand.
Yep.
And what you do is you'll say that, well, explain that. They know we already explained that.
Right.
You don't understand that. By you saying that the so-called Gooks are Japhet, you're bugged out. Because the scriptures clearly tell you that the biggest nation on the planet Earth is Israel.
Right.
Now, yes, the Lord said that at one particular time with the curses, he was going to make Israel small in number. He was going to bring their numbers down, but that did not mean that he was going to make them the least of the nations, because the Most High is not going to take his people and make them less than any other nation out there.
So Israel's as the sand of the sea.
Exactly.
That can't be numbered.
Right. You know, but there are curses that say that the Lord was going to make you few in number, but that means that he was going to bring the numbers down. But overall, the nation of Israel is greater or is compared to the sands of the sea, and they're greater than the other nations. So when the Lord said that he would enlarge Gad, means that he would enlarge Gad with his land. So when it speaks about Japhet and Japhet being enlarged, it's talking about Japhet's land.
Europe.
And Europe. And Europe Europe extends all the way up into Russia.
Shit, Russia alone is big.
Yeah.
Russia alone had to be divided when it came after they finished the so-called USSR. It had to be split up. But all that was Russia's land. You know?
Right. You know, so you guys don't know what the fuck you're talking about, and you're retarded, and you refuse to deal with the information that's out there that deals with the truth of the historic proof of who the Israelites on this side of the world are, because everything that they did bears proof that they are Israelites, and you refuse to deal with that. Now the guys quoted a scripture, which we're gonna get real quick. Get Ecclesiastes 12 and 12. This guy Bananarama, that's what I call him, he quoted this scripture that say that I don't care about those Edomite books out there. Alright? I don't care about those Edomite books out there. And this is a scripture he quoted. And we're going to break it down the right way, the way the white men, these clowns, don't want it to be broken down. You got it, brother?
Gun, I got it. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 12. And further, by these, my son, be admonished. Of making many books, there is no end.
It says, and further by these, my son, be admonished. Of making many books, there is no end. So what he said, he put that scripture to say that, well, all these Edomite books out here, they don't matter because of this scripture. That scripture don't mean, it ain't talking about just books out there, period. Because if it was talking about books, then the Bible would be obsolete then.
Right.
Because are there not many books in the Bible? Yes. What it means about making of many books is talking about making of many books of who the Most High is, of who Yahweh Shai is.
Right, that's the subject matter.
That's the subject matter. Because when you go back into the scriptures, who does the scripture speak about? It speaks about the Most High, and it speaks about the Yahweh Shai. Did not Yahweh Shai said that, lo, I come in the volume of the book, it is written of me? So if the book is written of Yahweh Shai, and there's many books out there that are made, what are those books going to be made of? They're going to be saying that, well, this Yahweh Shai or the Messiah or Jesus, whatever they call him, this was about him. And he had a wife, and his wife was married, Magdalene, and they had children, and you know, all kind of shit like that. That's what the scriptures are talking about, of making many books. That's what it means by making many books. But read that again.
Right, it says, and further, by these, my son, be admonished.
Be admonished or be corrected.
Of making many books, there is no end.
Of making many books, there is no end. What type of books is talking about? It's talking about books of who the Most High is and who Yahweh Shai is. Go ahead.
And much study is a weariness of the flesh.
Because there's so many books out there that you cannot possibly sit there and study all those books. One person can't sit there and study all those books. Why? Because you will fucking drop dead. And
Right.
that's just books dealing with who the Most High and who Yahweh Shai is.
And it didn't say you couldn't, you don't go to other books and,
Right.
and get information out of other books.
Right.
It didn't say that.
Of
It didn't
other
mention that.
gods.
You add into it when you breaking that down.
That's right. Go to Isaiah 34:16. And you, dickhead, you, Banana Rama, you said that, oh, that's talking about making many books, right? But now, you come back and you say, well, in Deuteronomy 33, when it speaks about, and Gad shall dwell as a lion, what does it mean by Gad shall dwell as a lion? But then you say that in the Zondervan's Bible Dictionary,
Which is a so-called Jew, which is a cracker,
which is a book,
Another
which
book,
is a book
making
written
it.
by a cracker, but the bottom of all crackers, a so-called Jew.
you say that they say that a lion dwells this way, he dwells. That's a book, nigga. So what the fuck are you talking about?
And if I may say this too, not all them books are Edomite books. A lot of them books, basically, what Esau does, he researched all our records, man. A lot of this information that we bring out is records that we already had, but Esau done stole,
Right.
right, and he might have put his,
corrupted it.
and corrupted it, put his bullshit in
Yeah,
there.
like
Right.
Josephus.
Now, Salaki, brother, I mean to cut you off.
Yep.
But now, when we're dealing with the information that we're dealing with right now, we're dealing with historical proofs and documentation of things that they wrote. This is not a fictional book,
Right.
you know? It's not a fictional book where they sat down and they say, well, maybe these people over here are this, or maybe this, because we have a feeling that because we think that these people have done these things, that's the reason why we say that they may resemble the children of Israel. No, it was actual visual proof of these so-called Europeans, Edomites, that came here and they wrote down things that they saw concerning these people. So now, if the case be that we can't use a reference in a book of a truth that somebody saw, then why is it that every week somebody brings out from Babylon to Timbuktu? It was estimated that over 1 million Jews fled from Jerusalem into Egypt since the time of Pompey, 65 BC. So why do we use that reference? Is that reference not true? You goddamn right it's true. But the reason why it's used is because it's the truth. Not because it's written in the book.
Right.
So now, hey brother, if you could read that, please.
Revelation chapter 12, verse 15. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood
Now
after the woman.
Who's the serpent? the so-called white man.